My name is Charles Nyabeze, and I'm the Vice President, Business Development and Commercialization with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. I'm coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario. For those of you who know, Sudbury, Ontario, Canada is a success story for what can happen when people come together to restore a land that was affected by mining in a negative way. Sudbury was used by NASA scientists to train for landing on the moon because it looked like the moon after mining had done a bad job. But if you go to Sudbury today, you can go fishing in Sudbury. There is lots of green trees. Blueberries can be picked in the bushes around the community, and we have managed to restore that land successfully. So we know that innovation can make a huge difference. My presentation is going to take four parts of the presentation. And the first part of the presentation, I want to give a bit of a foundation for everybody here so that when we're talking about clean technology in mining, that we're talking about the same things. So I'll lay a foundation on getting us thinking the same way about clean technology. The second part of my presentation is I'll be introducing the organization that I'm a part of, which we call the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation, CEMI for short. Part 3 of the presentation will be talking to you about a network that we've put together to mobilize innovation into the mining industry. And I want to stop for a moment and tell you something. There is not a shortage of technologies on this planet. There is a shortage of the mechanisms and support systems to implement the technology so they can be adopted operationally. The fourth thing I'm going to talk to you about is I'm going to give you some examples of clean technology applications across the entire mining value chain. As some of the speakers have been talking about reclamation, I also want to let you know that we need to build the mines of the future with reclamation on day one. Progressive closure of mines needs to start the day you open the mine, not as an afterthought, not as fixing someone else's problem that they left behind, but we need to open the new mine with a solid plan on how we can reclaim it moving forward. So clean technology. We can all agree that we want technologies that are going to have less impact on the environment. We all want technologies that are going to improve operational efficiencies, optimize usage of energy, and we want to make sure that clean technology can allow us to start mines that are sustainable users of resources, and we also want to ensure that clean technology can protect the environment that we are affecting through mining. So let's all agree that clean technology is here to make the mining industry better so that when we get to the point of closure, we already have it very easy to do because we've implemented due process throughout the entire value chain. When we are thinking about clean technologies, I want us to agree that we are going to be looking at solutions that are going to improve processes. We all know that mining is very process-heavy, very complex industry. We want to make sure that we're creating the products that can allow us to do things in a better, greener, cleaner way. And we want to ensure that the services and the equipment that we're using in the mining industry is also very consistent with where we're going with clean. There's a couple of things that I call the pillars that support innovation in mining. I think the most important thing is money. Without money, it's very difficult to implement anything in the industry. But we also know that we need places to test those technologies. And I know from talking to the team at Korea that there are various sites around Korea where there is abandoned mines that need to be reclaimed. These can be test beds. We need those test beds. We also need the ability to scale up solutions. We need relationships. In business, everything happens through relationships. Time is also another thing that's very important. We also want to make sure that we have the services that can support the implementations of innovations. We also need to ensure that we have got networks, collaborators, and partners that are working together. Intermediaries are very important. They do the translation between organization to organization types, and we want to work within an ecosystem of supports. What are the objectives of supporting innovation? We all know that the first 4 things I've listed here are very consistent with what clean technology is and how it is defined. But when I look at point number 5, we want to improve safety. Using clean technologies in a way that is a win-win to improve productivity, making sure that we're improving that operational performance, And today, the whole world is moving towards net zero, decarbonization, making sure that we reduce emissions, GHG emissions. All these things are supported through using innovations into the industry. Unfortunately, our industry is old. It's a very old industry, and it does have an adoption challenge. It's slow to adopt. The innovation adoption challenge really comes down to the rate at which we actually operationally integrate discoveries so that they have an impact on the bottom line of the industry. Another challenge we have is innovation awareness. What you don't know, you don't know. There are so many things that are out there already in the world that are innovative, that need to be known by those that have challenges. Mining is very complex. It's often been compared to multi-level chess that you can play. It's very difficult for a human being to play 10-level chess game. But mining is just that. It's so complex. There are many moving parts. I've often compared mining to changing a tire when a car is moving. It's very challenging to implement anything in the industry because it is so complex. There's an investment risk. It can cost $2 billion to start a new mine. So to introduce any new innovation into mining can be problematic when you have that investment risk. The risk aversion of mining is necessary. We don't want to lose lives in mining, so we want to make sure that we're doing things in a positive way. And then also mining is capital intensive. It costs big money to implement the key infrastructure in any mining industry. So I hope what I've done now is sort of giving you a bit of a context on why it is that I'm talking the way I'm talking to you about innovation. So my organization that I work for is called CEMI, C-E-M-I. Some pronounce it CEMI, some pronounce it CEMI, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it's fine with me. Our organization is based out of Sudbury, Ontario. Sudbury is the heart of the Canadian mining industry. And we are 15 years old as an organization formed by the mining ecosystem in Canada to solve the challenges of the industry in order to make the future happen as soon as possible. Our mission is to advance innovation in a way that can impact the triple bottom line of the mining industry. So yes, we want mining to not affect the environment negatively. Yes, we want mining to be positive revenue, right? Mining is a business. Mining is not a charity. Mining is a business. It needs to make money for its shareholders. But we want to make sure that mining is doing this in a safe way. Mining creates communities, so we want to ensure that mining is servicing the communities that it is impacting. And we want to ensure that mining doesn't have that bad reputation that is out there, that mining is dirty and unclean. Everything we see around us today is mining. The cars we drove to get here, the trains, the planes, everything is mining. The bridges we cross, all mining. And we need to get that message. All the phones everybody has, the translating pieces you have in your ears, all mining. So mining is very important. But we want to make sure it's clean and green. My slide did not show up properly here, but I will explain. We know that innovation is a business asset. And what that means is that innovation is supposed to improve the business performance. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at the red line. What is missing is a green line that is pointing towards my left. The green line is supposed to show you that by implementing innovation into the mining industry, you do two things. Number one, you can decrease capital investment and you can increase the rate at which innovation actually gets you to getting the ore out of the ground. So this is a slide that I will send around when it's cleaned up. At the end of the day, mining is a business. We want to improve the net present value of a mine through making sure that the return on investment is optimized through innovation. This is the slide that I normally use to just explain that there is not an absence of good ideas. Technology is not the problem. Technology getting stuck in this place we call the valley of death is the problem. So what we intend to do is make sure that we're supporting how innovation translates from discovery to operational integration. This slide shows you where we are now operating as an organization. We are now operating at the late stages of the technology readiness level scale, where we are looking for mature solutions. And the reason we want mature solutions is that the time it takes for a solution from fundamental research all the way to operations is way too long. And we want to be able to make impact sooner. So what we're doing now is focusing on innovations that are more mature, that are higher on the technology readiness level scale, that we can operationally integrate through demonstration projects, pilot project, and hopefully commoditize them into something that can be bought off the shelf and implemented. We also believe that step change is important, orders of magnitude in change, incremental innovations, 1 + 1 = 3, yes, 1 + 1 = 3 when you combine different innovations together to make an impact. And we also want to make sure we have orders of magnitude of improvement in costs, performance. This is the last slide on CEMI. We have 4 core services. Innovation scouting is going out into the world and finding innovations that can change the mining industry. South Korea has got a lot of innovation. But the question I have is, of all the innovations in South Korea, how many of those are making their way into the mining industry? That is where an opportunity is, to be able to find those other innovations and bring them into the mining industry. Things like sensors, for example, preventative maintenance that's used in the transportation industry, GPS technologies used by the aerospace industry. All these technologies need to come in the mining industry. So innovation scouting is important. Challenge identification is number 2 that we do. We look for challenges in the mines, challenges in the vendors, challenges in the R&D infrastructure, and look to close those challenges. We also do the matchmaking, where we're matching the challenges and solutions. And the 4th thing that we do is commercialization services. The commercialization services is the reason why we formed the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. And that's what I'll talk about next. So let's move on to part 3 of the presentation. Talk to you about the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. The government of Canada has allotted us, or given us, 40 million Canadian dollars. I think that's about $40 million in Korean currency. And the $40 million is going to be spread across the country to support innovation projects. The reason why I'm showing you the map of Canada here is that I want to let you know that Canada has all kinds of mining. We have got oil sands mining in Alberta. We've got uranium, potash in Saskatchewan. We've got open pit coal mines in British Columbia, base metal mining in Ontario, Quebec, and as the same as in the Newfoundland area. But what we've done is identified 6 partners across the country that are going to help us to tap into the innovation ecosystem across the country in order to make a difference. So that $40 million that I mentioned is going to go, $10 million or 10 billion Korean currency is going to go towards supporting a network. Again, we recognize that it's not about the technology, it's about mobilizing the technology through a network environment. 30 million or 30 billion Korean currency is going to go towards technical projects, and I'll talk a little bit more about those technical projects because they're all clean technologies that we're looking for. We are going to be distributing about $12 million in 2 weeks and another $18 million next year into technical projects that are mining related. The way that our funding works is that projects can have government support and private sector support. The government support is about 1/3 into projects, and we're looking to do projects that are about $2.5 million in terms of price. This is an image of the ecosystem that we work in. Mining, similar to raising a child, it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a community to raise a child, it takes an ecosystem to bring up an innovation. If you think of your most favorite innovation, and you really peel the onion back, or if you deconstruct the innovation, you can see that the innovation had an impact on all these different players that are part of the ecosystem. So we, as an organization, work with the entire ecosystem because this is how you actually accelerate the speed that innovation moves forward, is by involving all the different players to work together. I'm going to come back to this slide, but I want to dispel the myth that mining is a hole in the ground. If the word mining gives you an image of a shaft, an open pit, an open cast, that is just part of the story. When I talk about mining and talking to you about mining today and talking about mining and the clean tech in mining, I want you to remember that mining is that whole value chain from prospecting all the way to mine closure. Mine rehabilitation is a component of mining. There's other pieces that are equally important that we need to get right so that we can do reclamation right. The following slide are the 4 technology areas that we are looking at to move innovation to the industry: environment, productivity, energy, and smart. And what I'm going to do is quickly go through each of these areas without reading them out to you, because you will have these slides in your inbox shortly. Under the mine productive capacity area, we are looking for clean technologies under these areas. These technologies are mostly already available. However, a lot of them have not translated into the mining industry yet. Here's another area, is the reducing energy consumption and GHG emissions. This is an area where we are looking for clean energy generation technologies. For example, we're looking at things like whole system automation, energy management systems, the things that are going to make mining cleaner and greener. Under the environmental risk reduction area, which I think is a very important area when you're talking about mine reclamation, there is so much value that is already trapped inside the mine tailings. So there is a big push for extracting value from waste. So those reject materials, tailings, there's so much value in them. We also want to make sure that we are enhancing our waste management processes, water management processes, how we manage things like tailings dams, so many technology applications in these areas. And again, you'll have a copy of the slides later. The other area is the smart autonomous systems. Mining is becoming smarter, and in fact, we want to remove people from harm's way. So the more we can automate the mining industry, the more we can make it safer for people. Jobs will be created in other components of the supply chain. So automating mining is not losing jobs for mining people, it's creating them in other areas that support the mining industry. So I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see here that we are thinking about the kinds of technologies that we need to make the mines of the future operate in a better way. Now I'm going to go through these boxes one at a time and sort of demonstrate to you where the clean technology applications are in mining throughout the entire value chain of mining. The danger we have as mining people is that when we're talking about non-mining people, that we don't really explain to them the fullness of the mining industry. So let's talk about prospecting and exploration, for example. You can see here that I've got these drivers and activities that are happening within exploration and prospecting. But I want to just touch on one example. There's a company called Roser that operates out of Ontario, and they are an unmanned vehicle company that use UAVs to do prospecting, exploration work. Because of these technologies, we no longer need to rely on big helicopters to lift big infrastructure and fly it across, burning lots of fuel, making lots of noise. So this is just one little example of how mining is adopting clean tech in exploration. Another example, too, is companies that are using satellite-based systems, using technologies like muon tomography, where we're using cosmic rays that are coming from space and using them to help us to detect the minerals that are stored underground. So mining has a huge opportunity in using these technologies to advance the prospecting and exploration phase. And again, remember what I said? Mine rehabilitation is not the end of the story. It needs to happen from day one. So how we explore and how we even do our permitting is important. There's a company called Greenland that I'm working with that have a weather report for environmental forecasting. You see how you can go on your phone and you can know that tomorrow it's going to be 14 degrees? This company, Greenland, is designing an application where you can look at the application and predict what will be the impact on the environment if something happens. So these are the kinds of technologies that are going to allow the communities that are working in the areas where we want to go and do mining to have more comfort, to have more peace of mind, knowing that we've thought through about how mining will impact the communities that they're working in. And again, I'm not going to read everything here for you, but you can see that there's so many different areas where we can advance mining, clean technologies in accelerating how mines get permitted. In Canada, it can take up to 12 years for a new mine to open. Everyone is talking about the need for critical minerals, strategic minerals. Copper is running out. Well, if we're going to have new mines, we need to accelerate mine permitting using clean and green technologies. Another area is mine design. The example I want to give you here is a company called Novamera that is looking at a surgical mining process. So it's a new mining method where we don't have to disrupt a lot of land in order to do the mining. It's almost like we want to go and just take the nugget out without disturbing everything else. So these technologies are available. They're being proven today. But again, you can see that mine design is being impacted by cleaner technologies that are going to be useful and helpful. Another area is mine construction. You sink shafts. We want technologies that can help us to better understand the infrastructure we're building, the suitability of the infrastructure we're building. And here you can see that even the technologies that are coming out, things like digital twins and simulations, these are all helping us to design and construct mines with closure in mind. Gone are the days when we have to clean up someone else's problem. We can actually design the mines of the future to be mines that are easier when we get to mine closure. Here's an area where everyone talks about mining, extraction. Everybody thinks mining is just extraction, right? So here's an example of a company in the extraction side that I think is really important on the clean tech side. It's a company called iRing, and they are optimizing how we can actually dislodge the rock from the ground through blasting techniques that are optimizing things like fragmentation, making sure that we're not taking out that waste and diluting the ore streams. So these are examples of the clean technology we need as we're doing mining. And again, being able to avoid that dilution, to minimize it, means that when it comes to rehabilitation, you don't have as much of a problem to deal with. So again, it has to be progressive. You have to look at the entire value chain as opposed to looking at the tail end of the problem. Another area is mineral processing, and I think this is where the common things about mining are: extracting that beneficiation, getting that mineral or metal out of the host rock. There's a company called Destiny Copper, which is a copper technology which is clean and green, less contamination on the environment, recyclable use of chemicals. These are the kinds of thinking that we need to employ as we are starting new mines or as we're supporting new mines. I hear there's a potential titanium mine out there. We need to think about things like this as we are opening these new mines. How are we going to process the material in a way that allows closure to happen? The end of a mine life should be consistent with the day you close the mine. Unfortunately, that's not so, because many mines have closed and left a problem for the governments to deal with. And the same thing is true in Canada, where we have thousands of abandoned mines, orphaned mines, that need us to help them out. The next area here is, another very interesting area, is the tailing side, the rejects. I had somebody say once that if you call anything waste, you are just admitting your limited imagination. Because in mining, there is no such thing as waste. Everything that comes out of the ground has value. We just need to reprocess and reprocess, get value out. We should, at the end of the day, be even able to use the chemicals that we use in the system so that we keep recycling everything. There's a company called Miracle. It's an organization in Canada, and they are really making a lot of effort into using things like biotechnology, for example, in tailings management. They are very keen on extracting value from waste. So these are the things that I think are going to be so important as we're moving towards the mine reclamation and rehabilitation of the future. The other area here is mine closure. If you have sunk a shaft, a mine shaft 1,000 meters, 6 meters wide, and the mine life ends, what do you do with all this infrastructure? There are companies that want to use this old infrastructure for energy storage. For example, Clean Tech Geomechanics wants to use old mine shafts as energy storage for compressed air. So this is where you have the energy mix, right? You got your renewables, where solar power during the day convert to compressed air. Compressed air gets stored in these mine shafts. At night, you release the compressed air, you make electricity. So there is so much value in the mine closure process. But there are other technologies that are coming to play here, things like environmental monitoring technologies, impact modeling technologies and tracking systems. all these clean technologies already exist in other sectors of the economy. My challenge to you today is look at what's happening in transportation, aerospace, what's happening in the marine industry, in fintech. What technologies are already here that are being used in other parts of the industry that we can ruggedize and move over into the mining industry? And I'm almost done. This is my second last slide. So, what does the future look like for mining? When we've employed clean technologies into the industry, we see an industry with less people working in dangerous conditions. There is no reason why anybody should ever go to work and get hurt. So we have to remove people, but the technologies that we need are going to be important. We want to employ more predictive maintenance to improve reliability of equipment. In aerospace, I was talking to these guys who want to go to the moon, to mine the moon, and they were telling me that they want to build machines that have what's called progressive failure, or progressive degradation. The machine never breaks down. It just slowly dies. This is the kind of thinking we need to bring into the mining industry. Technologies around things like real-time monitoring are important. Machine-to-machine enabled automation and fully autonomous vehicles is the mine of the future. Other areas that are interesting are quantum sensors, being able to make rapid decisions, edge computing. With 5G coming into the mines nowadays, there's a lot more ability to not even have the computing power at the face, to have it in the cloud, as long as we can get information faster. Even the clothing that people wear in the mining industry is changing. We don't want people in the mining industry to wear those same old coveralls, right? We want the modern mining clothing that is responsive. Selective mining, I mentioned earlier on. And another thing I want to bring up is something called time synchronization event analysis. And what this means is that being able to identify what other events happened at the same time an event happened in the industry is so important to be able to really understand what's truly happening. Again, our industry is very complex. Traditionally, the communications have been very weak, but things are definitely changing now. So, that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I just want to thank everybody for listening, and hopefully I've said one or two things that have made an impact on you. Wish everybody a good and safe conference, good, safe travel back home, and very thankful to be here in Korea, in South Korea, and very thankful to be able to learn and enjoy your hospitality. Thank you.
네, 다시 한번 첫 번째 기조 강연을 멋지게 열어주신 광업혁신연구센터 찰스 네베자 VP님께 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 계속해서
And now we'll have a Q&A sessions. If you have any questions, you can make the questions to the presenters.
네, 마이크를 좀 가져다 주시고요. 여기 앞쪽으로 행사 진행하시는 분들께서는 여기 앞에 손 드신 분이 계시니까요. 마이크를 좀 가져다 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will give you the microphone.
네, 질문하겠습니다.
Yes, my name is Lasmaida Sirigar. Thank you very much.
감사합니다. 프레젠테이션 잘 들었습니다. 잠재력에 대해서 배웠습니다. 마이닝에 어떠한 기술이 이용될 수 있는지에 대해서 잘 배웠습니다. 많은 비용이 드는 산업입니다. 이러한 기술을 분석을 한다면 어떠한 이점이 있을까요? 대규모 광업 회사들은 저런 기술 분석을 하는 것이 정말
implementing technology, even though I guess the objective is very noble, but the cost benefit analysis in technology, especially for the green field, that's number one. For a brown field, for expansion, it would not be cheap as well. So I guess how would you calculate the cost benefit analysis from implementing the technology and the outcome that we get from it? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. One of the things that we have found out is that implementing point solutions is expensive. And when I say a point solution is expensive, what I mean by that is that doing one-off technology implementations is so costly because you have to mobilize so much of the mine to implement any solution or even stop work to implement one solution. So our approach is, why don't we find a group of technologies that are complementary, bring them together to a small or medium tier mining company and say, hey, here are 5 solutions that are complementary, that if you can implement them together, you're going to get more bang for your buck. So I would say the one way to ensure that you reduce the barrier of adoption of new technologies to smaller players is that you need to package solutions. This is why the bigger OEMs have advantage over the smaller companies, is because they can bring forward more of a package deal. So I would say small to medium tier companies need to really think about a group of issues that they want to see solved and then implement them at the same time. The other thing I would say too is that because mining is complex and it's a system of systems, you have to be very careful that solving a problem in one area doesn't create a problem in another area. So I would say that you need to do proper systems analysis, and I'd recommend a book by an author called Eli Goldright called The Goal, which really speaks about the theory of constraints, and it really speaks about how to truly identify the true bottleneck in a system to be able to make a change. The very best way of implementing technology in mining is before you open your mine. Unfortunately, most consulting companies out there, especially the major consulting companies, are very big on designing mines with old technologies. Now, I don't blame them for that, because you want to open a mine with proven technologies. But the unfortunate part in that is that it makes the new technologies become adopted a dozen years later from them being validated. And that is part of the challenge that we have. So I would say we want more risk-taking on mid-tier mining company size to try out those new technologies that are validated, but not commercially available to the broader mining industry just yet.
네,